Hello everyone, I wasn't actually going to shoot a video today, but I can't resist. I'm at my parents' place, here to see my dad of course, and also my sister's up with her family, which is always nice. Nice for Jasper because he gets to play with his cousin a bit. Fantastic. That's not what I'm talking about. I want to talk about Nissan. Right from the start of the new Nissan Leaf being released, I heard reports that if you quick charged it a number of times, because the battery would heat up, because they don't have any active cooling, what would happen is it would charge slower and slower and slower. Well, now this story has hit BBC News. They're saying that the Advertising Standards Agency is considering whether to start an investigation into mis-selling because Nissan Leaf owners are finding themselves unable to do long journeys in anything short of a very long time. Firstly, partly because the car won't do the 235 miles or so range that it's supposed to do. Well, 235 miles? No, not from a 40 kilowatt hour battery. Anyone who drives an electric vehicle knows that there's no way you can do that. Admittedly, that won't help people who don't know about electric vehicles, except when you're going to buy one, in my experience, the salesman goes, yeah, that's the rated range, it won't do that. Fair enough, well that's the rated range, that's not really something that Nissan have any particular control over because it's the rating. The rapid charging thing, however, that is a problem. The advert said 40 minutes to 80% under normal charging conditions. Now they've changed the advert to say 40 to 60 minutes under normal charging conditions, but here's the thing, right? Turns out that normal charging conditions means one quick charge in that day. It charges in the morning, you unplug it, you drive somewhere, then you quick charge halfway. If that's all you do in that day, you'll be okay, which is kind of rubbish. I drove my 24 kilowatt hour first gen Nissan Leaf to Scotland when I first had it 4 years ago. I think I stopped to charge 14 times. Admittedly, only for about 20 minutes per stop. Seemed to work for me in terms of covering the distance up to Scotland. Yeah, the key thing here is that you stop, you charge the car within a reasonable amount of time, which I would define as being 20 to 30 minutes, really. That's not a 280%, that's 20 to 30 minutes until you can continue your journey for whatever distance. I find that to be reasonable because by the time you've gone to the loo and got a coffee, you'll be good to go. Without the thermal battery management system, a proper cooling system basically for the battery, what happens is as you charge it, it overheats. And once it reaches a certain temperature, it limits the quick charging so that it doesn't damage the battery. Well, that makes sense. Tesla would do the same thing, except what Tesla did was build a cooling loop into the battery so that they can keep the battery cool, which is why, as any Tesla owner who's plugged up to a supercharger and has received, 100 kilowatts will attest, the fans at the front of the car are going like crazy because the car is making sure that battery stays at a reasonable temperature whilst the power is flowing. Nissan just basically cut corners. I mean, I thought originally with the 24 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf, I thought it was a mistake to not have active, temperature management on it. But as it turns out, practically speaking, for the vast majority of people, it wasn't an issue. The 30 kilowatt hour next version of the Nissan Leaf also had the problem, and it was worse because the battery has got bigger. But it was more or less okay most of the time. And so Nissan just went and put an even bigger battery in. And it's the size of the battery that's causing the problem. Basically makes it a bigger heatsink, probably a little bit more energy dense, although actually I don't know that for sure. Yeah, it's a bit more energy dense, definitely. So with a similar sort of waste percentage, you wind up with more waste heat for a given amount of activity if you've got a higher energy density like that, and a higher power density therefore. And the other thing, of course, is that because it's got a bit of a longer range, people will drive it for a bit longer. They're happier to go a little bit lower and to charge it a little bit higher in order to do their journey with less number of stops for quick charges. I don't know this for sure, but my guess is that if you drove the Nissan Leaf, the new one, between 60 and 40%, so you drove charged it to 60%, drove it till 40, and then plugged it up and charged it back up to 60, my guess is you'd probably get a more or less full charge rate for 4 or 5 charge cycles, maybe more, because although you're actually doing the same amount of work, the battery is right in the middle, where it works at its most efficient. Drivers attempting longer journeys in the Leaf have found themselves spending up to 2.5 hours at motorway service stations. I like a motorway service station stop as much as the next man, but not that much. When drivers come to charge for the 3rd time, or the 2nd rapid charge, that's when they seem to have trouble and face long waits. That could potentially affect any journey of more than 250 miles. Well, you know, presumably that's in a day. Today I've done 200 miles, went to see my sister-in-law. They had a little party this afternoon in south of London, and now we're way north of London. Here we go. 300-mile journey to the Lake District, and he found himself waiting a total of 2.5 hours when he stopped for a charge the 2nd time. Oh my word! I would so 100% take that car back. I like Nissan. I loved my Nissan Leaf. I loved it. But that is not right. Oh right, apparently rapid charging is only intended once in a journey. So, right. What happens if you want to drive further than 2 times the battery charge plus buffer? So you're realistically talking about 250 miles. If you want to drive more than 250, 300 miles, what are you supposed to do? Because I took my Tesla to northern Italy, you know, last year, and I think I did, the furthest I did in a day was something like 800 miles, I think, 880 miles, something like that. Quite a lot more than 300. And you know what? The car didn't overheat and charging never took more than half an hour. You could say the Tesla's just that much more expensive, but honestly, I just think, you know, Nissan just need to update the architecture of the car, because this is not a feature of electric vehicles. Most electric vehicles, all the other electric vehicles, don't suffer from this problem. But for some reason, the Leaf does. And it's just infuriating, because it's actually a good car, apart from this. Oh, that's just fantastic. The battery automatically slows a charge to preserve its longevity and to act as a safety mechanism when it gets too hot. Well, why does the battery get too hot, I wonder? Because they're not cooling it down. Oh dear, another guy spent 90 minutes, he and his wife spent 90 minutes at a motorway service station in Gloucestershire. Yeah, here we go. You see, I would have said 40 kilowatt hours is good for about 170, 180. Take some buffer out, 155. This chap is saying, bought the car for the range, and it can actually do 155 miles. And nowhere does it say you can only rapid charge once in a yeah, I mean, seriously, this is just shocking. Ah, right, yes. So that was the 235 miles was the NEDC driving cycle, and they've now moved to the whatever it was, worldwide harmonized light vehicle test procedure, which has reduced the official range to 168. This is still like such bad advertisement for electric vehicles and for Nissan. I'm amazed they don't think it's worth sorting it out. Ah, Jonathan Porterfield was interviewed for this. That's cool. I went up to Orkney to see him. So you invited me up here.
I did.
Which is a great suggestion, especially because I had no idea it was such a beautiful holiday destination from a weather point of view.
Right, don't go to the Bahamas, come to Orkney.
Runs ecocars.net. Regularly drives electric cars from Leicester to Orkney. Was the first to report the issue. I don't want this episode to knock Nissan, but at the same time they need to sit up and take notice. Just telling people you gotta wait longer at a rapid charger is not good enough. Yep, quite agree. That's actually, Jonathan has completely summed up my feelings. I don't want to knock Nissan, I really don't. But in this day and age, you shouldn't be selling an electric vehicle that can't just drive for as long as the driver wants to drive it. I mean, you could even do that in the 24 kilowatt hour original Nissan Leaf. So what you're basically saying is that for 5 years after is it 5 years? Hang on, how long have I had my Tesla now? 2018, 4 years, oh my goodness. 6 years, almost 7 years after I bought my first gen Nissan Leaf, the newest Nissan Leaf, 7-year difference, is actually a less capable vehicle than the original. Why? Because I have driven, I think the furthest I ever went in that car in one day was 450 miles. And I did it between sun up and sundown, and at least according to this article, you can't do that in a new Leaf. Go to your local Best Buy, Nissan, buy yourself a nice refrigerator, take out the loop, the cooling loop, fit it over the battery, job's a good one. Set you back about 50, 100 quid. No problem. Okay, it's a bit more complicated than that, but essentially the technology is the same. That's what they need to build into these batteries, and I think they should retrofit it, personally, because I think it's terribly misleading where existing owners have parted with their hard-earned cash for a car that basically is very definitely not a full car as far as I'm concerned. Right, said my piece on that. Time to say goodbye. This is not really a proper vlog post. It's a rant about Nissan, because this has been bugging me now for quite a while, and it's hit the BBC News, and it'll probably be back here when the Advertising Standards Agency go, hang on a minute, okay, they won't get pulled up for the range thing because that's just the stupid NEDC driving cycle. And even most of the salesmen that I've spoken to certainly are well aware of the fact that you won't get anything like that on a real road. But what they will, I'm quite sure, get pulled up on is this rapid charging business, because people aren't aware of the fact that you can only do it once in a day at a reasonable speed. So, I mean, that really changes things. It makes taking a Nissan Leaf to Italy from the UK totally impossible. Totally impossible. Well, unless you stop every night after 200 miles, which means it'd take a week to get there and a week to get back. Like I said, impossible. Hope you've enjoyed today's video and found it interesting. What do you think? Should Nissan retrofit a thermal battery management system to their cars? Or put out a public announcement, or just stop selling them, or I don't know what. What do you think they should do? Leave your suggestions in the comment section below, and hopefully somebody from Nissan will pick up on it. I have no idea, probably won't, but hey. If you've liked this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and share it, and subscribe if you haven't already, and follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you don't already. Links are in the description, and I will see you in the next episode. You notice I'm not saying I'll see you in the next episode of my daily vlog. It's because daily is kind of proving to be quite tricky at the moment because of life. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can check out the last couple of videos, and I'm sure it'll become apparent. Right, so I hope Nissan are going to do something about this. I'm now going to finish reading the article and see if there's anything else I want to add. It's going to be an interesting video to edit this. I didn't so much plan it and think about it as turn my phone on and think, oh my god, I've got to talk about that. So yeah, basically that's what's going on.